Hi everybody, I'm Supriya Gurtu, and I have close to 8 years of experience working on various implementation and support projects for Workday. And today, these are my certifications. So I hold HCM Core Compensation, Advanced Comp Benefits, Project Management and Integrations certifications. And today we'll be talking about the Workday 2022R1 release features related to compensation core and advanced compensation. Some of the webinar practicalities. Feel free to post your questions via chat and we will get back to you. If not today, then later via email. These session recordings will be available to you on demand a few days after the event. Feel free to use the PDF handouts that have already been shared with you. And if you want to be up to date with the insightful content that Theato Every has for the digital HR, please feel free to join this community and this page. This is the standard Workday Safe Harbor statement. Yes, and let's talk about the key new features that Workday has introduced for compensation core. Clawback payment processing, they had introduced this last release and they have had some enhancements in this release as well. Workday also now allows you to forfeit any future dated one-time payments in your termination event. And there are some enhancements in the compensation benchmark reporting as well. And we will see these and a few others in more detail. So starting with the clawback payment processing, Workday now allows us to and they have enhanced the clawback functionality and it allows us to kind of calculate the amount that would be clawed back, and you can recover this money through payroll and of course define some calculations for the clawback amount. In terms of configuration, what we need to do is we need to add request one-time payment step to our termination business process. We need to create a clawback schedule. We need to add the clawback calculations. So Workday will be delivering these two clawback calculations. First one being recommended clawback percent based on the length of employment. Second one being the recommended clawback percent based on scheduled payment date. So based on the length of employment or the scheduled payment date, we can prorate the amount that we want to be clawed back while we are terminating the employee. And then we need to add the category, the clawback schedule, and then the clawback calculation in the one-time payment plan that we want this feature to be attached. So let's look at the system. So I'm logged in as Logan McNeil, the comp admin, and I want to show you a plan, a one-time payment plan, where we can see all of these clawback related fields. Yeah, so for this one, we see that this category, this clawback was added in the last release. And we have this once we select this clawback category, it opens up this entire section of clawback payment options where we can provide the clawback schedule. There are a few schedules here, but we can create our own schedules. Where the create clawback schedule task, and we are simply saying that 12 months from the date of hire, this is how the clawback date will be calculated. And then this is where those recommended field options would need to be selected. and this will be a calculation that will decide the amount that needs to be recovered. Unfortunately, this is not delivered yet on the system. We do not have those fields yet available, but I'm hoping that they would be available soon to us. So let's try and terminate somebody, and then we can see how this will look like in action. So James Moore has a one-time payment of retention incentive. This has already been paid on 31st December last year. And yeah, so this one, and the clawback date, oops, sorry, based on the clawback schedule is 12 months. So this year, 30th December is the clawback date. Now let's say James decides to leave the organization. So we have to terminate him, and we give some reason. And he decides to leave before the clawback date. So let's say 17th. I'm going to submit this. I'll be taken to the one-time payment step. So you can see as of his termination date, he has some clawback payments. So this is a new section, the clawback payment. We can edit and we can specify the recovery method. Do we want to leave it as is? Do we not want to claw this back? We want to claw this back through payroll, or are there any other methods we can recover it manually? So you can, for the purpose of this demo, we are going to select send to payroll, and based on the clawback calculation that we would have selected, this amount would be populated. And then again, Workday allows us to edit this amount. So let's say we only want 1,000 to be clawed back, and the scheduled clawed back date also can be overridden. We can change it. As of now, it is going to default to the termination date. One thing to note here that this amount, when we submit, will be turned into a negative amount, the clawback amount, as this is going to be a deduction from the payroll. So if I approve this, my termination is submitted. And on my process details section, we can see this new section here, clawback payments, specifying the recovery method, the clawback amount, the negative clawback amount. So a couple of things to keep in mind to understand how this clawback will work. The clawback date should be after the termination date. So basically the employee is leaving the organization before the clawback date. Then for the one-time payment, the send to payroll flag should be on, and the payment, the one-time payment should already have been made in the system. So the worker has already received the payment, and then the payment will be eligible for the clawback during the termination. Okay, another interesting thing that I want to show you is if I correct this termination. Let's try to correct it and see what happens. So I'm going to correct it and maybe terminate him after his clawback date. I'm submitting this. And let's see the process history now. So it's showing corrected data and that clawback payment section has gone. And please note this message here where it says the termination date was modified. So the clawback payment retention incentive is invalid. So that clawback payment has now become invalid because he's now being terminated after the clawback date. And the same would happen if I rescind the termination. We would be able to see similar kind of messaging. Another interesting feature to this is a report view. Oops. One-time payments eligible for clawback. And you can select the relevant organizations. Oh, sorry, I had corrected that event. So that is why we are not able to see it here. But otherwise, we would be able to see the one-time payment event, the clawback date, all these kind of fields, clawback payment event, the recovery method, the calculated clawback amount, which is the amount which the calculated which has been calculated by the new delivered fields. And this will be the amount which we have actually provided, the scheduled clawback date, and then any additional information. So these are the additional fields that have been that we will see related to clawback. Okay. That was a bit about functionality. Then couple of additional considerations. In case you already have a termination business if your termination business process already has a request one-time payment step, and if you have any in-progress terminations, you will be able to process these clawback payments for your in-progress terminations as well. And in case you are terminating via a web service or an EIB, just make sure that your request one-time payment step is marked to be processed manually, and then you can receive these one-time payment step in your inbox, even though you are terminating your employees through a web service. So in summary, what is changing? Of course, improved clawback functionality while we are terminating workers. And what we need to do is to add the request one-time payment step. And then in the plan, we need to select the clawback category, the schedule, and the calculations. If you do not do any of these things, you would not be able to create your clawback payments for your terminating workers. Now the next feature is forfeit your one-time payments in termination. So any future dated one-time payments that you are doing for your terminated employees can now be forfeited, and any manual effort or any risk of overpaying these terminated employees can now be avoided. Okay, so what we need to do is add the request one-time payment step to your termination business process. And there is a field which is delivered. This is an optional step, so you can add this condition here that only if the worker has any future dated payments, you would trigger the request one-time payment step. So let's jump into the tenant and see what it would look like. My demo employee. So Carmen has a future dated one-time payment. She's being paid on 1st of April. And if I terminate her, let's provide a reason. My request one-time payment step has triggered, and this is the section future dated one-time payments, where we will see all of the future dated payments that this employee is scheduled to receive. So when you have an option to either mark this as forfeit. If we mark this as forfeit, then the employee will not be paid this amount. Let's submit this. Let's see the process details. This is the new section here. Future dated one-time payment. And the notice here that the send to payroll flag has now become no, which means that this is not going to be processed through payroll, this payment. Okay. So yes, so couple of additional considerations. Future dated one-time payment section displays on the request one-time payment step. Yes, this we have seen scheduled payment date after the termination date and sent to the, yeah, so basically this section will appear, the future dated one-time payment section will appear if the scheduled payment date is in future and we have marked it as yes to be processed by the payroll, then while we are terminating the employee, this future dated one-time payment section will appear in the request one-time payment step. And of course, forfeited payments will not be processed within payroll, and the severance one-time payments will not be covered under this feature. So in a nutshell, what is changing? Forfeit future dated one-time payments for terminated worker. What we need to do is just add the request one-time payment step to the termination business process. And if you do not do this, a one-time payment can potentially be processed through an error. So utilizing this feature will definitely reduce the risk of any such errors. Now let's look at the compensation benchmark reporting features. This is a bit config heavy feature release. So Workday is now providing us with internal and external compensation benchmark report fields that we can utilize in our different compensation events such as request comp, requisition comp change, hire, change job, offer, and also on the compensation review processes. And we can also now create reports to see the compensation benchmark of the open job requisitions. What we need to do to configure this. So Workday has delivered 2 new security domains, the non-worker data external compensation benchmark and internal compensation benchmark. Please ensure that these security domains are enabled and the required security groups are assigned. Then Workday delivers new internal and external compensation benchmark adapter report fields on adjustment for business object. So the report fields on adjustment for can be utilized in the compensation reviews. The report fields on employee compensation event can be used in our request comp change, change job, hire, etc. And the new reports on the job requisition business objects can then be used on the request requisition comp change and to create reports on the job requisition to view benchmark data. So we will just look at the configuration here, how the calc fields need to be built. So to pull these benchmark fields on your compensation review grid, so basically the screen where the manager is proposing awards, they would be able to see this benchmark data and then make informed decisions about the merit that they would be giving to their employees. So what you need to do is create a calc field to connect the external compensation benchmark adapter to the adjustment for business object. Okay, so this external compensation benchmark for comp review on the adjustment for, we can mention the compensation component as base salary. The calculated field type will be lookup fields with prompts calculated field. Then once we have created that, we can pull in the benchmark value. So let's say here we have pulled in the 50th percentile for the external compensation benchmark. And then similarly, we can create, we can connect the internal compensation benchmark adapter fields to the adjustment for business object, and then create this internal benchmark for merit. And these fields can then, this is what your grid, your configuration grid would look like for the compensation review. And we can pull in these calc fields that we have created to display the compensation component, the currency, and the 25th percentile here. And this is what it would look like when we launch the comp review process. And on the propose awards screen, this is the propose awards screen. And this is the benchmark data, benchmark profile, the compensation component, the currency, and the percentiles. So in cases of promotion, the external compensation benchmark data is based on the new job profile and the new location, and internal compensation benchmark data will be based on the new job profile, new grade, and new grade profile. So in case you're promoting anyone during the compensation review, if you are changing their job profile or putting a new grade, changing a position, this external compensation benchmark data will get refreshed according to these parameters mentioned here. Now we'll take a look at how we can pull the external and internal compensation benchmark information on the employee compensation events such as request comp change or a change job. So we can connect the external compensation benchmark adapter fields to the employee compensation event business object here to create this external compensation benchmark calc field. And then we can create a custom report, and the data source for that custom report should be the employee compensation event. And then we can add the fields related to the external or internal compensation benchmarks like shown here. Then this custom report needs to be configured as a worklet so that this could be embedded on the compensation related business processes. Once it is embedded, it's going to look like this. So while you're doing a change job, let's say, and you change someone's job profile from a consultant to senior consultant, based on the job profile, the external compensation benchmark data will also vary. Now, looking at how this will work on the job requisitions. So for the job requisition, we need to attach the adapter field to the job requisition business object, and then we can create the external benchmark field for job requisitions. These fields can then be utilized on the custom report. So the custom report needs to be built on the job requisition index data source, and like this you can add these fields and then again configure this custom report as a worklet to embed it on the request requisition compensation change, and this is how it will look like. We can also run that report independently to view the benchmark related information for any open job requisitions. Some key pointers to note here. As we discussed, in cases of promotion, external compensation benchmark data will be based on the new job profile and new location. Internal compensation benchmark will be generated on the basis of new job profile, new comp grade, and the new grade profile. And in cases of other compensation related business processes like the request comp change, external compensation benchmark will update when the job profile or location is updated, and internal compensation benchmark will update when job profile, comp grade or comp grade profile is updated. So these things we should keep in mind. So in a nutshell, what is changing? Enhanced reporting ability for compensation benchmark data. What we would need to do to utilize these is to use the new adapter report fields to create these calculations that we have seen and display external and internal compensation benchmark data on compensation review. We can create custom reports for the compensation benchmark data and then embed them to our compensation business processes. And also we can create custom reports to view the benchmark data for our job requisitions. If you don't do anything, there is no impact as such on the existing functionality. Now, there are some other features worth mentioning here. So first one being the configurable compensation basis. So Workday now delivers new web services to manage the configurable compensation basis. So get configurable comp basis and the put configurable compensation basis. I think that this is a great feature because while we migrate the configuration, it makes us very easy for us to not do it manually, but we can use EIBs using these web services to migrate the configurable comp basis from one tenant to the other. So for the implementers, this would be really helpful. Now, the second one being now Workday also allows us to copy step-based calculations and conditions, definitely helping us in reducing the manual effort there. So you can go to any of the step-based calculations and related actions. You will find an option to copy it, and then you can just copy that calculation and create a new one from that. Another feature is so we have now a new option in the edit tenant setup HCM task for the educational institutions. We have a new checkbox called apply payroll costing validations to period activity pay costing overrides. So in case you are using this functionality or you're using the manage period activity pay assignment task, this could also be helpful. I'm going to pause here for a bit just to check if there are any questions.
Yeah, that I see right now, Sabriya. There's one thing, however, maybe if you have time just to quickly mention, how would the clawback work if you're terminating employees via the web service or the EIBs?
Yeah, so for that, as mentioned, we need to ensure that our request one-time payment step, we have to mark it to be processed manually. And if that is done, then while we're running the EIB, the request OTP step will not be skipped, and we can then have that step come in the inbox, and we can then take action on that.
Okay.
All right, so moving on, let's take a look at the advanced compensation features. So just a couple of them, the deferred bonus overrides and the maintain bonus accrual estimates. Let's talk about the first one, deferred bonus overrides. So this feature now basically gives us two new editable fields that can be added to the configurable grid. So if you are using deferred bonuses, any deferred bonus plans are being used, these fields will definitely come in handy for you. Workday has also added these two new fields, deferred bonus amount, deferred bonus percent, on the get employee and the import employee awards web services. And two new report fields are now being provided, award eligible for deferred bonus and default deferred bonus amount. Look into the tenant. So deferred bonus is something for folks who are not familiar. So this is a functionality that Workday basically allows us to defer some bonus payments. So we can define some calculations on our bonus plans to say that, okay, let's say 10% of the bonus amount should now be deferred. And then that deferred amount can be later paid via stocks or some other options. So here we will see what these fields would look like. So I have a compensation review in progress. Basically a bonus review in progress where we are utilizing deferred bonus plans. And I have added these two editable fields now to this configuration, to this grid. And as you can see, there is a deferred percentage calculation already happening, which is defined in the plan. And then based on this calculation, there is a standard amount, the default deferred bonus amount that gets calculated, and then the non-deferred bonus amount. These are also the new fields. And then these are the editable fields. So whatever amount is being calculated, the default amount, I can override it. Let's say I've done it for a couple of them. So let's say for Oliver Reynolds, if I go for him, the default deferred amount comes out as 61,897. So I can go and edit it. And based on that, the other calculations will also change. As you can see, the non-deferred bonus amount has also changed. The default one will stay as it is because this is coming from the calculation engine, but the deferred bonus percent and the non-deferred bonus amount has changed based on what I have edited in these fields. So a few considerations here, negative amounts or percentages cannot be entered into these fields. 0 can be entered, it is an acceptable value. And override amount cannot be more than total bonus amount, of course, and the percent cannot be over 100. So in summary, Workday now allows us to edit the deferred bonus awards during the compensation reviews. What we need to do is add one or both of these fields based on our requirement to the configuration grid. And if you do not do anything, then there are no major impacts as such. Now let's look at maintain bonus accrual estimates. So Workday now improves the bonus accrual estimate functionality by delivering a custom report option. So we can now basically attach a custom report that we have created to view the bonus accrual calculations in a better way, that the way that we can understand better. And they have done some UI related changes like renaming the create bonus accrual settings button to just like create settings, and we will see that in a bit what it looks like. The cancel action button has been renamed to delete, and they have now put a limit on the bonus calculations to be at 25. So if you have created 25 calculations, Workday will now force you to delete any unused calculations. So let's see what this looks like. So let's go to the maintain bonus accrual estimate reports. And you can see here that I have created a couple of settings. So this is the new button, not a new button, but this is a button that they have renamed. It's just called now create settings. And when you are creating the settings, you can now basically you have the ability to add a custom report here. So this is one of the reports that I have created in the system. It's basically a copy of the bonus accrual budget pool estimate. So you need to create it on this particular data source. And if we go back to see the maintain. This task. Okay, so this one is in progress. So these are the buttons that I was talking about. This was called cancel before. This has become delete, and you can do a calculate now. And this is the custom report that we have attached. So the calculation can be seen in a format that the user understands better. So you can see, like, for different organizations, what is the bonus spend, and then the contribution amounts and so on. And then you can go on and add more fields as required. This is the one which is the delivered. So you can see that some of the fields are missing here. So if you want to do something as per your own requirements, we can create a custom report and then attach it to one of the settings here. You can see that now it is If you say calculate now, it's going to process and create the calculation for you. It will take some time. So basically, there will be another row which will get added here. And only 25 of these calculations can now be maintained. If you want to create a new one, then on the 26th one, Workday will force us to delete any unused calculations. Another feature to this one is that now on the view bonus calculation report, we can now pull in the estimates from here. So whatever estimates that have been calculated, have been created, can be brought in here to see the calculation. Maybe we can see what this page would look like. I select Yeah. So here you can see in more detail the bonus calculation for this particular employee, Carmen. What's the bonus target amount? All these detailed calculations can be viewed on this report based on the estimates that we have done. So in a summary, what is changing? Improved bonus accrual functionality. There's nothing that no action that is required. If you choose to do nothing, you can still select the bonus accrual estimates created on the maintain bonus accrual estimated report. All right, so let's take a look at the roadmap. So talking about Workday roadmap, one very interesting thing that I feel is that they are not thinking about how they would be enhancing compensation or advanced comp or benefits. They are thinking about it as a total rewards strategy, and a lot of thought is being given on how the workplace and the workforce is changing. So, the challenges of the recent times, like the issue of retention, and then how the employee expectations are changing, and how the employer is under the pressure of communicating the total rewards uh, strategy, and how they can retain their employees better. So thinking about these new situations that are there in the workforce, in the workplace, the key areas that Workday wants to focus on with respect to their total rewards strategy is first being the insights. They want to provide adequate data for decision making. So as we have seen, the enhancements coming in the compensation benchmark reporting, they want to provide more information to the hiring managers to be able to propose the awards based on what the market currently is. Then Workday wants to focus on making their product agile and reducing the burden of repetitive tasks. So definitely things like forfeiting, the scheduled payments in the termination, and the clawback functionality is on point. And of course, they want to provide a better experience to the user and help them understand their total rewards in a better way. So what we can expect in future is more skill mapping, more work tags to be associated with the benchmarks. They would most likely enable eligible earnings override for stock plans. We can see more enhancements in the deferred bonus calculation area, and then some time off and absence prorations could also be included. Workday has also delivered this really great compensation discovery boards, and then in 2021 they delivered the pay equity board. So we can see more enhancements coming in the compensation dashboard area as well. So yeah, that's it from me for today.